Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of the Third Podcast, where we cover this, that, and the third. And on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about Black love. Yes, the conversation that has swept the internet for years. We're going to dive into it today and ask what really is Black love. And we're going to do it with three Black people who are in healthy relationships. What does that exist? Yes, Black people who are in healthy relationships. So I'm going to bring in my co-host, and we're going to start with Kai. How are you doing today, Kai?
I'm good. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty well. I can't complain. I'm maintaining a Black man in this world, living a middle-class life, trying to find baby formula. That's me, so can't complain.
Oh, gosh. I feel for your family. I'm so sorry that you guys are going through this.
We'll figure it out, man. People think that this baby formula thing is a conspiracy. No, this is real. Like, there ain't no damn formula out here. Like, people out here really searching and hurting for us. So I think we'll be okay. But I know that there's other people out there that are really, really struggling. So, yeah. All right.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to be talking about, just what we talk about in general on this podcast, but I think for us, we talk about the realities of life in this country, as Americans, but also as Black Americans. And so I'm looking forward to our discussion about Black love tonight. I know this can get, I don't know, too hot for YouTube. So let's see how it goes.
We're going to do an absolute bang up job on this topic. And to help us do that, we're going to bring in our third co-host, Mr. Aaron. What's going on, Aaron?
What's happening, y'all? Brandon, just let you know, my baby formula plug just knocked on my door, and he said he got you. He said,
all right. What is the markup? Because you know,
make
sure he's not stepping on it. Make sure he's not stepping on any of the formula. I need that pure, raw Enfamil. Like, I don't need nothing stepped on. Okay, I need the pure. My baby got a sensitive stomach. Okay, we need that pure. So if you got the plug, man, definitely hit it up. And I know people are definitely slinging.
Formula, they moving that work.
Yeah, it's happening.
Red tops, blue tops, yellow tops.
Man, selling them by the OZ, literally, like out here. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, but that's where we at, man. Like, this is a reality. We are here. We are definitely here.
Sure. Absolutely.
But and outside of that, we got the formula shortage going on. We also have another school shooting. It's like there's school shootings happening literally every week, and only some of them get publicized nationally. Like, there's a lot of school shootings that end up happening that people don't know about, they don't even realize. But these ones that we have, like the one that just took place, I think it was in Texas, where we had 14 students shot a teacher, and the shooter, the 18-year-old, shot his grandma. It's like, man, the world is definitely going mad. There's a lot of stuff happening all the time. Gun violence is out of control everywhere. So yeah, any thoughts on that before we dive into Black love, which can feel like a gun violence situation sometimes, depending on who we talk
to? Just say my condolences to those families. As we were talking offline, this country, this planet, they love violence, and you get what you want, and everybody wants gun control and all this other nonsense. Weapon. Listen, we talked about it last year. It seems like everybody on the planet is walking around with a weapon at this point. Everybody. And unfortunately, people are using it for not just defensive purposes, but to use it to harm other people. And, it's just, we saw Black grandmothers and Black men get killed last week. And this week, I don't know the ethnicities of the people, but I do know it sounds like children were killed in this incident, which should be even more alarming to people and exactly where we are as a society. So, prayers up for all the victims, and hopefully we can find some solutions to solving that problem as well.
Absolutely. Any thoughts from you, Kai? Are you ready to dive into Black love?
That's a heavy topic. But before we do that, I definitely want to send out condolences and prayers to those impacted by the shooting in Texas, but also in Buffalo. Both tragic, and even what happened in Buffalo, from what I've seen, it hasn't received much news coverage. Just to talk about looking at that from the lens of anti-Black or Black hate or anti-Black hate, however you want to frame that. It's been framed more so as domestic terrorism, or we need stricter gun laws. So I hope that a conversation comes out of that as far as that touches upon the racism that exists in this country against the Black community. I think we can't just brush over that. But again, sending prayers to both families and communities that have been impacted by this violence.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for sharing your thoughts on that. Now we're going to dive into our topic for today. And our topic for today, as I stated earlier, has swept the internet streets for years. It has been the point of contention. We've seen people rise to fame, pass away, and get attacked because they talk about relationships, Black relationships to be more specific. And we continue, I don't want to say we're at this peak, but we continue to be at this kind of point in time where Black male, Black female relationships have just been detrimental and sometimes toxic. And I think that it's going to be a good opportunity for us to have a conversation with three people who are in three different stages of relationships with Black people. Like, we are in actual relationships with other Black people, and how do we maintain the level of healthy relationships amongst that? We don't really see these conversations happen online. We see a lot of frustration amongst both Black men and Black women about what the other sex ain't doing, or what they could be doing, or what they should be doing. But we don't really get to see the perspective of folks who are actually in functional Black relationships. So hopefully we can have a good dialogue about that. Do either one of you want to kick it off, the conversation, either with a question or a comment or a monologue on Black love? Any perspectives that you all want to start off with?
You got it, Kyle. You got it. You got it. Kyle had so much. Kyle was dropping knowledge backstage. I was like, "Oh, Kyle, you got it, Kyle. Go ahead, Kyle. You got it."
Well, I guess this topic kind of comes off the heels of our last episode when we were talking about the impact of Kevin Samuels, and just looking to see all of the different discussions that were taking place online. It's kind of like either you like Kevin Samuels or you don't. It kind of was like a very, very clear define as far as people that supported him and his work, and people that did not. But I saw something that was interesting, is a lot of people were saying that they were either trying to figure out if he loved the community, did he love Black people? And I couldn't understand why they were asking that. And then I guess from just looking at more of the comments and more of the dialogue, it seemed as though they were questioning that because of the information that he was providing to the Black community and how he was providing to them. Meaning, telling Black women basically to be accountable for your actions, and also being realistic as far as the type of man that you could have in your life, or your dating options, and also challenging both men and women to kind of step their game up to pursue the life that they want, but also to be realistic about the type of dating options that they have. And so I guess from that, it was kind of this question that kept circulating: does he love the Black community? And it just made me think that, do we think love means when someone tells us something that makes us feel good? And if someone says things that kind of challenges us, makes us feel a little uncomfortable, forces us maybe to grow in certain areas, do we look at that as that's not love? Are we more comfortable with people that are making us, calling us kings and queens and goddesses? Is that something that we appreciate more? And if somebody says that to us, are they like, oh, they really love the Black community? So that just caused me to kind of question, if that's how we think, is that kind of some of the reasons why many of our relationships are in the position that they're in, because we're not really having these real conversations and really challenging each other show up in the world that we need to, as individuals, as people in romantic relationships, but also as a community.
Good perspective. What about you, Aaron? What are your thoughts?
I love the king queen look. Every time I tell my girl we're gonna get a king queen shirt, she says, "I ain't wearing that shirt nowhere. I'm not wearing that." She says, "I ain't wearing that shirt." Yeah, we don't. I think so. Mr. Fuller, I go right, Mr. Fuller. It is bad because it's depressing. Mr. Fuller says we have attempted relationships. And if you really think about it, that's what we're all attempting to do. We're attempting to have as healthy relationships as possible. And I think Kai kind of hit it on the head. You know, when Kai was talking, the first thing I thought about, because I grew up in a Black church, but the first thing I thought about was Christianity, was Black Christianity. And if you think about the Bible, right, the way that people function and actually quote unquote what is biblical, there's nothing popular about the Bible. But what Black people have done, and I've seen it, been one of those people, you will manipulate it into something that will make you feel good, and you will delve so far away from the construct of what the book was quote unquote intended for, that you forget all about what Christianity is. My dad would always say, shout out to Pop, my dad would always say he would respect Black Muslims, specifically males, more than he would Black male Christians, because he says, you know, that they have a line that they won't cross, and there's a level of discipline that's required within that religion. Christianity, you can almost just do anything. You can do whatever you want and say, I love God at the end, and then it's good to go. Well,
only God can judge you.
You see what I'm saying, Kai? It's like, I make it what it is. It's Burger King. Have it your way. And I don't care what people say about it. If you think about it, it's true. And that's, to me, what has happened in a lot of just relationships. But I think it's a perfect example, because if it makes me feel good, I don't have to follow any rules, and there are no consequences, because all I can do is just feel good all the time. The problem is that none of our relationships, not only do real life relationships function like that, but everything is a relationship. Brandon has relationships with people that he works with, that he might either be in charge with or he has to come in contact with, and they have to be harmonious and reasonable. Kai has relationships with people that she works with her husband, anybody, myself, clients, people. All these relationships, people have to learn how to get together and work together. But for some reason, in Black relationships, we don't think we even need to do that. We don't think we need to do any of that, and that it's fantasy world. We got all these Disney stories, and this is one thing I want Kai to talk about a little bit later. But so my lady would always say that Black women, and just women in general, grew up with the Disney model, which is a guy's just going to come in to save the day. Like, if you look at a Disney movie, that's all they're about. A guy's going to come in and save the day. The problem is, in Black relationships, that male is not equipped to do that.
Are you saying that the roles have been reversed? Are you saying that the roles have been reversed?
I'm not saying the roles have been reversed. I'm saying that this system has basically made it so where Black males, it is extremely difficult to come in and just save the day. And that's what women are looking for. And then when the guys don't do it, niggas ain't shit, and I'm getting them out of it. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So this can go so many different ways, but we're attempting to have relationships. And I do think I'm wearing my mental health t-shirt today, but I do think that people really need to start, and we'll get into this later, but start to really think about the level of empathy to where both sides are coming from. Because one thing I never hear people talk about is the backgrounds of the people that are getting into these relationships. I know that Kai is married. I know Brandon's married. And just based upon the conversations that you guys have had, there's been a lot of talk about background. Brandon has talked about his background publicly on this platform, his relationship with his mom, relationship with dad. The more transparent people are, the better the relationship become. When I'm looking at these women and these guys get on the internet and they talking, oh, I don't want to date Black men no more. They never talk about their relationship with their dad. They never talk about how much they hated their mom, their brother. They never talk about any of that. They say the solution is, I'm not dating a Black guy. I'm not dating a Black woman. And that's how I'm going to solve this problem. And that's why we see what we see. That could be wrong.
Interesting. So we got a question in the chat. What incentive does a man have to come in and clean up mess that he did not aka the female actions create.
Oh, we're
So what
starting out
sense?
strong already.
Yeah, we are starting our strong. Should we back up? Should we ease our way into it, or should we just go straight crash test dummy straight to the wall? What do y'all want to do? Because Baseman gonna be here. Baseman awaken. Baseman gonna be here. So we let's back up. Let's ease up. We'll get it, Baseman. We're gonna ease our way into that.
And make sure you note that question because it's very interesting that the female created all the actions. I just want you to remember that the girl did everything.
Oh, you simping. It's okay. Yeah, you simping.
Yeah, I'm simping.
His girl watching. That's why he said all this. His girl watching.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So let's give some context. Let's give some context. So you already stated I'm married. We'll be approaching 10 years of marriage this August. We've been together for 12 years. We got 3 kids. All our kids are by us. Okay. We got all our kids by us. Kai is also a do you still consider yourself a newlywed at this point?
We've been together for a while, but we'll be married almost a year next month.
Oh, wow. It's been that fast? This year's gone by really quick. Wow. Well, you're not a newlywed no more. So you've been married for a year, together for a long time. Aaron, you've been married before, correct?
Yes, been married before, now in a long-term relationship and about to relocate with my lady down south. Absolutely.
Got it. So you're in a long-term cohabitation thing that you're about to dive into.
Yep.
So we've all had this experience for various different times. In your marriage, what would you say has been the biggest learning experience that you've gained? So for you, Aaron, in the past, what was the biggest thing that you learned? Kai, over the last year, what's the biggest thing you learned being married? And then I'll answer the question last. So Aaron, what do you think? What's been the biggest thing that you've learned from, being married and then ultimately being divorced?
Man, you got to ask questions.
Okay, so you gotta ask questions.
You gotta ask questions, and the things that are most uncomfortable that you don't want to talk about, those are the things that should be right at the doorstep. Because that might give somebody the opportunity to say, I don't want to do this, and that's okay. And I think those are the conversations that men and women don't want to have, because for myself, can't speak for my partner, if you have any sort of level of trauma or codependency, you don't want to say what's wrong because you just want to have somebody there. And a lot of men and women don't want to talk about that because they're afraid that somebody is going to walk out the door. Well, the issue is if that thing ain't good for you, you need to walk out the door anyway, whether it's the woman or the guy. But neither person is thinking. If both people have a level of trauma and it's unhealthy, then neither person is going to talk about that. And all of those unhealthy behaviors are going to pop out in that relationship. You ain't even got to wait too long for them. Matter of fact, you saw them when y'all was dating. But if people are not healthy and they don't have a good identity for themselves, all of these things are going to pop up. So it's like you got to, like Mr. Fuller says, you got to ask 250 questions before you hop into bed. I know people ain't asking them questions because I wasn't asking them questions. I said, girl, you fine as hell. What you want to do? And that was the question. And she wasn't asking a lot of questions either. And so this time around, it's been a lot of conversations when you talk about how I was raised, how you were raised, what's your background, what's your family dynamic, what did I learn from my parents that are having a healthy relationship, and what did she learn from her parents that are in a relationship? You know what I'm saying? All these different aspects and viewpoints that people weren't really thinking about it. And I know people say communication is like that's the key, but you have to talk about stuff that you don't want to talk about, because those are going to be the things that are going to be the pain points or the things that can be repaired in the relationship. So you got to ask questions, Brandon, whether you like them or not. Got to ask questions.
Okay, so you got to ask questions. How about for you, Kai? What's been one of the biggest things you've learned in your experience being married?
Well, since we were together about 6 years or so before getting married, a lot of those tough conversations we had, but it was a growing process. I'll speak from my end. I was one of those people that was very passive aggressive. So if something was bothering me, I wouldn't come out and say it. I would just cop a little attitude and go do the silent treatment. And I had to learn how to properly handle situations as they would rise in our relationship. Because I wanted to break patterns that I saw growing up, but I didn't really have the tools on how to do that. So a lot of what we did, we kind of were learning as we were going and figuring out what worked and what didn't work. But I think even in that, we always wanted to make sure that there was never a line crossed of us disrespecting each other. So it was always we may disagree and we may even have a heated argument, but we both knew that there was this line of respect that would never get crossed. But I think when Aaron said with communication and talking, we did a lot of that to get to know each other. But I think also the important thing was creating a safe space to have conversations that are tough. And for my husband to know that if you come and share something with me that is sensitive to you, I will never throw it up in your face and say, I remember when you told me X, Y, and Z, when we get into a heated exchange, to know that I would never use anything that you say to kind of throw it in your face to create some type of hurt or damage to the relationship. Because once you do that, that can forever change the relationship. It can create a situation where you may not trust the person to open up again. So for us, it was really important to have a relationship where we can set up firm boundaries, and that we were kind of learning as we were going along, but also to make sure that we never disrespected each other. That was extremely important to us. Always have dialogue. Sometimes I didn't know how to communicate when I was upset about something. So because I didn't know how to communicate, and that was different because I was used to just going from 0 to 10. So I was the way to tell you, there's a lot of growth. So I had to learn not to do that. So sometimes I would tell him, like, I can't talk right now because I'm trying to work through how I'm feeling. And he would understand what that would mean. He would kind of say, well, what do you mean you're working on? He's like, okay, she missed her time. But no, that I then have to go back and have a conversation. So that's what we had to do. We had to learn because we didn't really have anyone to go to, like an elder, to provide guidance for us. So a lot of stuff we had to work through, and we'd like to try to talk to younger people that are coming up, try to provide some type of guidance for them and instruction for them so that they can kind of work through things a little bit faster than we were able to.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you said a lot. I think just to kind of follow up with you on what you're saying, for myself, one thing that I've learned being married for 10 years, which sounds crazy, is that those boundaries are extremely important, but I had to learn what boundaries were. So, I think a lot of times in relationships, we think boundaries are just these things that people, we identify them when people cross them. That's one of the biggest problems, is once it gets crossed, then they're like, oh, that's a boundary. And then we want to get mad at the other person. We have to know what our boundaries are before they get crossed. But a lot of people don't even know what they are. So, the way I like to explain and think about boundaries is the expectation I have about myself and how I'm supposed to be treated, and then how I expect other people to treat me. And that's one of the biggest things that we can do in order to deal with our boundaries. I'm getting crazy feedback. 1 second. All right, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. I don't know who the feedback's coming from, but it can definitely be heard. So those boundaries are important for us to, one, recognize the relationship. But one of the biggest things that I think that I've learned outside of boundaries was the fact that in our relationship, we've grown like several different times throughout this time frame. And I think a lot of times people get in relationships and expect people to be like complete packages. Like, you came this way and this is how you're always going to be. And that's one of the biggest setups that we have. And this comes out a lot in a lot of the manosphere conversations, is these women are supposed to come like completely equipped with a whole kit on them, like a car. And it's like, you got to let people develop and grow and change. And then you got to, be a comparative, and you're going to grow and change as well. And a lot of people ain't really ready for that. And that's one of the reasons why relationships don't work, because they have these high expectations of how people are supposed to be without even giving them a chance to develop into it. And one thing that I've learned about being married is it's kind of like a dance. Like, the longer you go, the more you start to mirror and match each other. But somebody can take one step to the next direction, and you got to match that step. Otherwise, things just get off balance. So it's a very interesting dynamic that we find ourselves in.
So sometimes when I hear these conversations, right, black men and black women sound like they want a dog.
Sure.
Like, sit,
listen,
do this, let's go eat. Oh, you follow me where I want to go? And I said black men and black women because the men are saying, I want you to boom, 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 boom. And you just submit and do whatever I say to you to do. That sounds like a dog. I have a puppy upstairs. That's what my puppy does. There's no interaction. There's no challenge. There's no intellectual thought. There's no level of growth. I tell you what to do. And then some sisters you hear, okay, well, he has to come and he's got to do this. He got to be able to provide and protect me and such, and I ain't got to do nothing because he's going to handle it. People, do we want relationships or do we want dogs? Because if you want that, you can just get a dog. You can just tell the dog what to do. But if you actually want to grow as a human being, and that's another thing that I'll be honest, I didn't realize how important for that. I didn't realize how important this was, but for somebody to actually challenge my way of thought and make me want to attempt to be a better human being. Because when you have a male ego, you think you're right about everything. And it's not until you meet somebody that not only has another level of intellectual conversation, but somebody that's looking to attempt to challenge you on some of your thought processes. That's what we need in a relationship. And I think people are scared of that because of like ego and maybe how they grew up. But that was something, I'll be honest, like I still have to work with it now. But a lot of times I have to stop myself and say, okay, Aaron, I know your ego's involved, but she's right about this. And like, you kind of need to look at this a little bit differently. And then vice versa. How she communicates with me is a little bit differently. She might not say it, but she might change her behavior. So we communicate differently, but that's okay. But sometimes I think that we just think we know everything. People don't even want to grow. Like, God forbid, if Kai is in a relationship with her husband, that her husband can learn something from her, or Kai can learn something from her husband. God forbid that happen, because that goes against all manosphere, all divestiture talk, and everything. God forbid you learn something from a partner. Like, that can actually happen. And then one other thing I wanted to say is that I've talked to so many men, married men, guys in long-term relationships, people that would quote unquote be considered successful. Every single one of those guys, Brandon, always says a key to my success is a lot of times what people don't see is from my partner, because she sees stuff that I don't see. She might come in the room and say, that girl you attempting to hire, she ain't the one. And I'm telling you that right now. Or this deal you're attempting to do, that ain't it. Why? You didn't look at the numbers, you're excited, all this stuff. It's a second set of eyes. And that's what a relationship is supposed to be. But I think just because of our environments, both parties want so much power that it becomes a dictatorship. And I'm not talking, I'm talking about people that are having successful relationships. Because I also question, do people have successful relationships? And I'm going to talk about this real quick. My father and my mother have been married, man, I think it might be close to 40 years. It was clear as day. My dad was a pastor. He was a leader in the church or whatever. I think my mom might have made more money every year that they were married. Nobody cared and nobody knew, because the relationship worked for them and how they wanted to raise their family. And a lot of these talks out here are based upon what people are having their fantasy world, but what's not really going on in their homes and what works for them. Because you might be a guy that has a healthy relationship. I was just talking about this the other day, and your wife might make a few $1,000s more. Are you okay with that? But your family's running okay. You see what I'm saying? But your family's running okay. You guys are healthy. You're in a great place, but you're getting all these outside messages saying that that's not the way it's supposed to be. There's some women, you're not balling out of control. You got a great husband. You got a great father. Your kids is healthy. Or even if you don't even have kids, you got a great husband. You're not working, but your homegirls, and you hear all these messages saying you should be independent. But that might not be what your relationship looks like. Why can't we just do what works for us? And I'm guilty of that, because I used to compete with my homie. And my homie was like, that's why you got jacked up, because you, instead of doing what you wanted to do for yourself, you was trying to be me. And that's a real thing that men and women don't talk about. I'm sorry. They don't talk about it. They hear all these outside voices and they never become themselves.
Yeah, I think you touched upon so many good points. But I think for us, not going along with whatever is going on with mainstream. I do not listen to any uh, I don't listen to people that have not shown that they've had growth in their own personal life. And if I see that there's growth and I see that there's changes, okay, let me take what they're saying in consideration. I don't use it as the rule, but I say, okay, I can understand bits of this. I can take this from it and I can leave the rest. I can take what I need, what applies, and leave the rest. I think a lot of times in our community, we believe that we have to agree with what one person says 100%. And if we don't agree with what they're saying, we throw everything out. And so, therefore, a lot of times that people that are giving us some helpful information that can be really be beneficial to us as individuals and as in relationships, because of how they're delivering it, and we don't agree with everything, we'll just discount it. And I think that is not helpful for us. So listen, I don't agree with a lot of things that people say, but sometimes, people do provide bits of truth that are helpful. So I think it's just to kind of listen to everybody and just take what's for you. But one thing is, I wouldn't just blindly follow whatever mainstream is saying. If mainstream news or social media celebrities or Real Housewives, or if they're like, "Girl, you don't need him because you can go get your own house." Listen, what's most important to you is building a family, building relationship with this person that you decided to spend your life with. Is that what's most important to you, or keeping up appearances on Instagram, Facebook, to show off to other people that don't even know who you are? And I think for doing that, it was important for us to say, okay, what type of relationship do we want, and we protect it. So because we protect it, I don't go and listen and like Aaron was saying, that chatter of other people. I don't go out and listen to that, because at the end of the day, is this going to build my relationship up, or is this going to harm my relationship? So we have to also make these calls. That are you getting whoever is speaking into us? Are they pouring life into us, or is this some type of jealousy that they're pouring into us because you have a relationship? So I think we have to think more logically about who we're listening to. Than just kind of taking everything because it makes us feel good. Because somebody could be giving us information that doesn't feel good, but it could save your relationship. It could save your marriage. So we have to start taking the feelings out of this and look to see what is our end goal. What are the outcomes that we want to see in our homes?
So let me ask a question, because Kai, you bring up a point that I think gets overlooked a little bit. And when you talked about how we follow these people and we follow them 100%, and whatever they say is kind of like the gospel. Why do you think, when it comes to Black folks, two-part question, why do you think we talk about relationships all the time? And why do you think we're always looking for somebody who has a solution on how to be in a relationship with the other sex? What are your thoughts on that?
So I
It's for
think we're
both of you.
always looking because many of us, not all of us, but many of us have not seen examples in our household. So we don't kind of know exactly what roles, and I'm not even getting into gender roles at all, but I'm just saying what roles that people play in a relationship. How do they work out conflict? How do they build together? We don't see that. So a lot of times we do look outside, and so we look to celebrities. And so one thing that is very popular is this prayer that, what is her name? Sierra. What prayer? Sarah, what did you
Sierra prayer. Go ahead and say it, Kai. You know
Is there a video? Is there a video on this prayer? I
Recite it,
hear
Kai.
about it. Man, Russell Wilson.
that? So it's like, what did you pray, girl? Because and so the thing is like there's this idea that I'm totally getting canceled, but whatever. There's this idea that we as women, like we don't have to make any changes. We don't have to change our behavior. And the guy is just the one that is the problem. And if he could just do A, B, and C, all will be well. And I'll just say on my journey, I had to realize that I had to make changes. Because once I started to look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, you have some patterns of behavior that have created certain outcomes. And if you want to stop these outcomes from continuing, you have to begin to change how you show up in the world. So you have to start dealing with your past traumas. You have to start dealing while you're allowing certain people in your life. I had to start doing that to be able to allow myself to be in a healthy relationship, or else I was going to continue down the path of dysfunctional relationships. So I had to make changes. And when I was doing that, I stopped looking externally and I started looking internally and saying, okay, I noticed that, either I keep dating guys who are emotionally unavailable, or I'm unemotionally available and they're like, let's be in a relationship. So why does that keep happening? So I started asking myself, like, why do I keep seeing these type of patterns show up in my life? And so I think that that we as the Black community, like we have, again, that's moving out of emotions, right? Because now I'm taking accountability for my actions, my thoughts, and saying, okay, I have to start making some changes. And when you start to do that, you'll have so much time that you'll be investing on yourself. You don't have time to worry about what Sierra is praying about or what every other person is praying about, because you're going to be so focused on, okay, all right, let me try to work through this other issue I got going on. And that's how it works. Like, whatever worked for Sierra, but that shouldn't be our benchmark of what we need in our own lives.
Brandon, hold on, man.
Go ahead.
God, I got your back.
Oh, you're on camera now.
We're not letting them cancel you, God. We're not letting them do that. But okay, so two things what Kai just said. She's 1,000% right. But the one thing people don't look at things objectively. Even if Sierra did pray that prayer, right? Most people don't remember that Russell Wilson was even married.
Mm-hmm.
So did Russell Wilson have to do anything in order to get? I'm just saying. So it was literally Russell Wilson just walked there. He was perfect. Nobody knows what happened. You see what I'm saying, Brandon? Nobody has any idea if Russell Wilson was a jerk, a jack, whatever in his previous marriage. They just know how he's acting now. So there is a very strong possibility that guy had to change his behavior in order to get into some form of a healthy relationship. That's number one. Number two, people don't want to focus on that because, and this is something that Kevin talked about, but I think when we're looking for gurus, Kai hit the nail on the head. Not only did we not have the examples, but we're ashamed to even say we didn't have the examples because we are ashamed to say we need help. I'm ashamed to say, not only did I not have an example, but my dad was a jerk and didn't. And I'm not speaking about my own, but I'm saying in general. Or for a guy, like I don't really know how to treat women because my mom treated me in a manner that she mistreated me. We don't want to admit those things because it makes like we have this protection over our family. But that's the key to a lot of this stuff, is that we have to be honest about where these behaviors came from. And Sierra, don't say that Sierra's prayer. I told you, listen, Sierra had more to pray about than just Russell Wilson. Okay? Like she had more to pray about than Russell, and vice versa. So it's just one of those things, man, to where the celebrity worship, Brandon, even like with Kevin, I mean, Tasha K, like I hear people saying that Cynthia G is like a relationship whisperer. What is happening? Like what is going on? Like you guys don't, and Brandon, you guys don't realize, read the comments. There are thousands of women on there saying, girl, yeah, she got the answers and thank you so much. And I'm like, like Kai said, you don't have a parent, a brother, a sister. We have got to the point to where 30 and 40-year-old men and women are calling up a 50-year-old man on the internet saying, I need help in my relationship. Because we have no other examples, like none. And people are saying, no, I get advice from other people. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating. And you brought up some YouTube examples. I was thinking not even online, like how people really grasp onto these relationship books from celebrities. I think celebrities are some of the worst people to judge relationships off of just due to their status. Like their status is going to give them a different dynamic in a relationship than you. But so many of us go to them for answers. We don't even go to healthy relationships that are around us if we have them around us, which is very fascinating. I don't know why it's like that. I mean, I kind of have an idea, but I feel like if we had more healthy relationships just around us, we wouldn't always gravitate towards celebrities telling us how to have healthy relationships. And it almost seems like every time we get these celebrities, no matter who they are, they can be religious leaders, they can be movie stars, athletes, some kind of scandal or something always happens in their marriages and their relationships. And it's just like, and what do? We fall right back in line with them. Just like Derek Jackson last year. People thought Derek Jackson got canceled. Go look at his numbers. And especially on Instagram, his numbers ain't changed at all. I looked. His numbers ain't changed at all. He's still eating, and people are still going to him for relationship advice. So, it's interesting that we have this very fantasy approach towards relationships. We have this desire to get our relationship advice from people who don't live the common life like most of us live. And it's sad that it has to be like that. Our examples for relationships really should be in our own families, but it just highlights the detrimental impact that we have and the deterioration in our family dynamics that we have, where, a lot of us have grown up only seeing like one married couple in our family, or sometimes a few. And then those people, we seen, the ins and outs of their relationship, and they was lying and cheating or whatever, and we don't even believe in that. But outside of that, man, I don't know what to say about Black relationships. And then when we do see Black people who end up getting in relationships with non-Black people, we get mad. We get mad. Well, let me back up. When we see Black men and non-Black women, we get mad. When we see Black women with white dudes and other dudes, there's no negativity. None. There's nothing but support. But when it's Black men, it's like, oh, it's time. They just did it with little Bronny James. He's 16 years old. He getting run through the mud. Him and his dad getting run through the mud. Like, it's crazy. But if Serena Williams' daughter, well, not even Serena Williams, who's got a daughter that's almost of age? Steph Curry's daughter and Aisha Curry's daughter, she's a teenager. If she came out, or let's just say the Obama girls, right? Malia and Sasha Obama, you see some pictures of them walking around with some white dude or some Indian dude, nut crickets. Oh, don't they look cute? It's crazy. And it's like we are at this very like toxic state when it comes to relationships, and we even pick on this young people who end up in these relationships as well. So I don't know. I think we got a lot of work to do when it comes to figuring out our relationships. But one thing that gets lost in this conversation that I don't think we consider is that the people who get hurt the most in this are the children. It's the kids. They have no models, no structure, no guidance, no damn clue what's going on. And then we wonder why they're in the shape that they're in the situations that end up happening. And we don't even consider them when it comes to relationships. And I think that that's one thing when I look at my own relationship that me and my wife are very focused on it from the beginning is we're doing this for our kids, even when we didn't have them yet. And I don't think a lot of people are focused on, being in union because of children. So any other thoughts from the two of you?
Yeah, I want to add, Kai, did you want to go? Oh, okay. No, I want to add one couple that I know that impacted me now that I think about it more when I was growing up. And obviously we talked about it a million times, but America's favorite couple. And that was Bill Cosby. And the most beautiful woman, I till to this day, the finest woman on the planet, Felicia Rashad. She's still the finest woman on the planet. But one of the things that I always envied about that relationship was they were Black people attempting in entertainment that I saw not only in a constructive relationship, but they were having fun. And there was a level of intimacy that they had that even as I got older, I was like envious of it. Because sometimes in many of our households, Brandon, I don't know about y'all, but you didn't see mom and dad like kissing or hugging or having a level of intimacy that for some of us Black, let's be honest, for some of us Black people, we were like, ugh, when actually that should be the normal. Like your parents should have a level of love and intimacy in the household that's held. I mean, shoot, they married. Like, you know what I'm saying? So they should have that. And I remember seeing that. And some of us might have grown up in households where we did not see that. And they're like having fun. And I think it was also a reality for me that so many Black people, so many Black parents were not having fun. And it was not that fantasy. And it was not, Clip and Claire trying to make it happen and being successful, but they were struggling based upon their circumstances. So I did see that as a very positive example because, just the little stuff like him playing jazz for and stuff like that. I'm like, man, that was dope. Like, you love to see that. And it wasn't an example of James yelling at, we struggling, the welfare is not coming in, or everything had to be problematic. So I did think that as deranged as Bill was, he kind of saw that too, that I'm trying to show America that there can be love, intimacy, and fun in a Black relationship. Unfortunately, he didn't have that in his own life, but that's what he was attempting to do.
Yeah, and it's so sad that we really don't see that anymore. I mean, with all these reality shows, it's just a lot of dysfunction. And then we begin to adopt it to the belief that this is actually Black love. Like, this is how it's supposed to look. And so I'm hoping through our conversations that we'll have, even with this episode and future episodes, that we can start to unpack that for us as a community to realize, like, no, we deserve and we need healthy, stable relationships. And that's something that is for us. That's not, getting along with your partner, not arguing. That's something that you should strive for. If you have a disagreement, how can you resolve it in a way that's constructive? Those are all things that we can do. But I think for us, because we've seen either we didn't see how issues were resolved, or one person would just walk out, storm out. What I would do the silent treatment. That's how I saw growing up. So some of these things I started to model in the relationship. And I will say that sometimes it was the case of where I didn't want the relationship like I saw in my household, but I didn't know what to do to prevent it. So I was sometimes I felt stuck. Like, I don't know how to respond. I know I shouldn't respond this way, but I don't really know what the alternative is. And so if you have two people that are in that same situation and they're trying to create a healthy relationship, but they don't know how, naturally, if they don't have anyone that they can go to, they may start to look for celebrities or people on Instagram who, again, especially with celebrities, you don't even know if that relationship is real. You don't know if the publicist kind of put them together for whatever reason. So we're looking at a relationship thinking it's real, and it may not be real. And then we're trying to model that relationship, not really even knowing who these people are, how they're showing up day to day. Russell Wilson is kind of like the model, but honestly, we don't know. Like, we don't know how he is, how their relationship and how they interact. We know nothing about that. We only see a snippet of what's on Instagram, or when they're doing an interview for a magazine. So, and I don't mean to just pick on them, but it's just that we have to begin to look at, like, we don't really know who these people are. So to try to model our relationship after them, I think that's not in the best interest of us as individuals, as people that are in relationships, or for our community.
Okay. So before we close out, there's two more questions. One from the chat that we brought up earlier that we'll take a stab at, and then the final question to close us out. So what incentives does a man have to come in and clean up mess that he didn't create, aka the female's actions? Any thoughts on this for Baseman Awakens? Any thoughts?
I mean, I'm a guy, so Brandon, you and I will stab at this one. I mean, he doesn't. There is no incentive. I don't disagree with them. There is no incentive. The problem is that if this is such a huge issue, and this is one of the things that Kevin was talking about, all these other relationship people were talking about, if this is this huge issue, is what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So if it's women, if it's the women that are making all these bad choices, then we scold the women. But we're not doing anything about these dudes. So the dudes are just allowed to just run wild and just continue to be dusty. Because that's what I'm trying to figure out, is that it can't be both. It can't, or maybe it can be both. It can be dusty women. I don't know the answer to the question, but there is no incentive. And then also, what does he mean by clean up? He means like people that have traumas. Newsflash: if you're Black in America, you have a level of trauma. I believe that. That's just my opinion. Because if he has, like Mr. Fuller says, if Baseman Awakens has the formula to be healthy here and have healthy relationships, he needs to write that book, and we'll all follow it. No, I'm not being sarcastic. Like, nah, bro, you got it. This is what y'all need to do. Don't follow these women. And when I didn't follow these chicks and I handled my business, I ended racism. I ended all of that just by doing this. I don't think that's true. So I'm just trying to see, cleaning up what? All of these women are coming from environments that many of us men were in. So we don't have some of that residue on us too, or they just got it. And that's the argument that I get mad at with Black women, because Black women make it seem like they separate themselves from Black America. Oh
no, they are Black America. Right. They separated us out.
Right. Right.
That's
so it's like, well, no, we're the Black, like the Black community, and we got all this stuff going on, and y'all into it. Okay, well, Black men are going through trauma. Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the Black community, which is, if we all are subject to anti-Blackness, how do we get here? That's the one part I don't understand. How did we get here if everybody is subject to the same system? And I had notes and everything. We were going to go in, but we don't have no community. No, we don't have no community. And essentially, many Black people don't want to admit it. But the reason why they're going into racial relationships, the reason why they're doing divestors, the reason why they're saying niggas ain't shit, the reason why they're having all these conversations is because of one thing. They said, I quit.
It takes too much work. Yep.
It's too much. I mean, Brandy, you know it. It's too much work. And I don't want to deal with this anymore. Just let me fit in. I'll get my car. I'll get my 401k. I'll get my house, and I'll just chill. Because trying to help you Negroes ain't the way. And let's be honest, that's what most people are thinking. And we know it.
Kai, you want to jump in?
Yeah. So I think the big thing is we do not like, generally speaking, being accountable. And so anytime somebody calls us out to be accountable, then you're questioning the love for the community. And how much do you really support the community when you're saying, okay, we have some behaviors that we need to address. And I want to speak to the trauma. Yes, we've been traumatized. And I don't mean to belittle that at all. But when are we going to start the healing process so we can move forward? Because right now it seems like we're just kind of running in circles. And yes, there's trauma. And Brandon, I think you were on my podcast like 50 million times. And we were talking about historical trauma and generational trauma. So we know that that we have been traumatized. We know what happens when trauma is passed down to generation. But what are we going to do about it? And I guess for me, sometimes I do find it frustrating. I understand that everybody is in a different part of their journey. And I had to go through my leg of my journey as well. But we just start to see a pattern, because we can even see this in politics with how we respond to different things that happen politically. And all we need is Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever to come out. Yeah, she could throw up her sign for her sorority. Joe Biden gives a hug, and we forget because it's just happening to that emotional part of us. And so we're not going to be as successful as a family, as a community, if we're just totally governed by our emotions. It's just not going to work that way. So, and I guess to answer his question, I think it's for both of us, for men and women, to begin to look at ourselves. Stop looking external. Stop looking what other people are, how other people are treating you, begin to look at yourself, because people are only going to do what you allow. So if you find that you're continue in certain type of relationships with certain type of women, or you find yourself in the same relationship with certain type of men, you have to begin to look, okay, why am I attracting, or why am I allowing the same type of person in my life? You can't just say, Black men ain't this, Black women ain't that. No. It's the type of people that you are allowing in your life. Every group of people, every race, every ethnicity has people that have dysfunction and trauma. But the thing is
Yes.
that we have to decide, what are we going to do as a community? Nobody's going to come in and save us. You going out and getting in an interracial relationship, that is not going to save you from your blackness. You're, at the end of the day, you're still going to have to deal with the issues that affect our community. I mean, I don't know what has to happen at this point in society to get us to realize that we need to wake up and take this seriously. But there is no running from blackness in a country that was built on racism and white supremacy.
Mm. To add on to this conversation, because you brought up healing. I want to throw something out there because I had an experience about a month ago that messed me up. The organization that I run, we do a big conference every year, and this year one of our keynote speakers was a woman by the name of Dr. Pauline Boss, white woman. I think she might be in her 70s. Old school professor, very smart, does work on ambiguous loss, and we did a fireside chat. So she did a short presentation, and then me and her were having conversation. And I had asked her a question about healing, and she said, "Let me pause you." And she said, "I want us to stop talking about healing because it's gotten to a place where it doesn't mean any damn thing." Like this white lady just went off, right? And she said, "One thing we should kind of think, we should consider instead of saying healing all the time is meaning and purpose because the trauma already happened." And when she said that, I was like, "Oh shit! Like that's it! Like this white lady just dropped the mic, and I don't think people realize it. Is the healing is in finding meaning and purpose." And when we talk about when you say what do black people need to do to start the healing process, we don't know. And the stuff that we do isn't effective because none of it has any meaning or purpose. And it doesn't. It's like we want to get into I will start cussing. We want to get it. We want to start burning sage and dancing, singing Kendrick Lamar and yelling at white folks like that shit ain't healing. That's not working for us. We need to do things that are just why you laughing. You know it's true. You've seen it. You seen it. We want to get mad at everybody, but look in the mirror. We looking out the window and not looking in the mirror. Our healing really is about finding meaning and purpose. And I think one of the biggest ways when it comes to black male female dynamics and relationships is finding meaning and purpose and why we want to be together. We talk all day about why we can't be together, but we don't really hear why we should, like the meaning part, or why we are together. And my answer to that question, and it's been this for a couple of years now, is I think if we really focused on being together for our children's sake, maybe we'll get somewhere. Just do it for the kids. If you give a shit about the kids, figure it out for them. Because at the end of the day, it's the core reason to why our kids are messed up in so many areas. But we're so focused on our own sexual desires and our own egos that we don't give a damn about our children. And that's really the answer. When we look at all the behavioral issues black children have, literacy rates, low academic achievement, low nutrition, the high levels of hyperactivity, all that stems from family dynamics. All that goes back to black male female dynamics, foster care, incarceration, the school to prison pipeline. All that shit starts at home. And that starts with the female male dynamic, but nobody will tell the truth about that. They'll blame white supremacy, which has a role in it because white supremacy is going to do what they always do. They find a problem, they figure out a solution. That is capitalism 101, problem, reaction, solution. And if you're going to continue to be a problem, they're going to continue to have a reaction and a solution for your problem. And then we get mad at them. When we can fix all of this by fixing black male female dynamics, and we know this answer, that's why we talk about this all the time. We're just having the dialogue around it. But that's my soapbox to kind of drop us off. One more question to end us off for today, which is the question that is our title of our episode. So I want you both to kind of take a stab at it. I'll take a stab at it too. What is black love? What is it?
I'll be honest with you. Looking at our community, I don't know. I don't know. I was thinking about this in preparation for tonight, and I think that's something that we have to define. like, what do we want it to look like? Because right now, oh my gosh, if you're looking at what we're seeing displayed on television, and not even on television, what we're seeing in our own households, and we talked about as far as what the examples that we're seeing in our home, that we're not seeing that, so we're looking external. So that right there tells us what's happening in the home. So I think it's up for us to define what do we want Black love to look like, because right now it's not good, if that's what we want to call love. If we look at love as something that is duty, accountability, responsibility, those are things that I don't really think, I guess I could say principles that we live by. I think generally speaking, we live by our emotions. And so that's why we find ourselves kind of going from relationship to relationship and not really learning anything from the past relationship. We're just kind of bringing whatever we did in the past to the next one, and it's continuing the cycle. So for me, I think we have to define it, but as it stands right now, what did Neely Fuller say? It's tacky. But I think
Tacky,
it's
Trashy and terroristic.
Yeah, terroristic and trifling. Yes.
yeah. So I think along those lines right now. But we can change that. We can all do our work to change that. Everyone on the right here on the podcast, we all had to do that internal work and have conversations with ourselves and make hard changes to become our highest version. We're still doing work. We won't ever arrive. We're constantly learning and growing. But as of right now, I align with what Mr. Neely Fuller said as far as our relationships.
What do you think, Aaron? What is Black love?
I'm with Kai. Unfortunately, it's yet to be defined. I think back to Mr. Fuller, but also think back to Dr. Welsing, and Dr. Welsing would say that the purpose of Black men and women getting together they had that. What you just said, Brandon, was phenomenal with that lady. Shout out to that lady, whoever she is. But that meaning and purpose, I think when we really get to the nitty gritty of it, the relationships that work best are the ones that have that meaning and purpose. And I think in some ways, as culturally, because culture is what we do, we don't have any meaning and purpose. We just get up every day and just live. And we've lost that meaning and purpose. And that's why we no longer have a community either. Even if we were fighting for the wrong thing, at least there was a meaning and purpose there. Right now, I couldn't tell you what people are fighting for. People are fighting for individual things. They want trinkets. They want this. They want that. They want clout. But what really is meaningful and has purpose? And so, I can look at both of you guys and your relationships, and just from the things I know about Brandon's wife, and just from Kai, the things I know, I can tell that there's some meaning and purpose there. So those relationships have a very much better statistical chance of surviving and thriving than other people's relationships. But just because there's a basis there that each individual has a meaning and the collective goal is the same. And I don't know, when I look at Black relationships, if the collective goal is the same. What are we here? Like Mr. Fuller says, what exactly do you want to do? And that's a question that I think that we culturally, independently, and as a couple, and then as a group, have to ask ourselves, what is our purpose? What are we here culturally? And it seems like every year we get further and further away from that. So my answer would be that Black love is still undefined, and each one of us, united, independent, individually in our own relationships, in our own lives, we got to kind of figure that out.
Wow. Good answers from both of you. I should have prepared better since I asked the question. I don't really have an answer, but I will take a little bit from Dr. Wells. So as I listen to the two of you and reflect on this question, I think Black love is an offshoot of Black self-respect. And Dr. Wells always said, Black self-respect is more powerful than a nuclear bomb. And I think the fact that we haven't accepted what Black self-respect is to us has led us to not being able to have Black love or even answer this question. So, once one love, absolutely. This is a great point by Stewart, the author. Shout out to Stewart. Self-love, once love is defined and lived. And, for me, I think Right now, Black love is an attempt to figure out why we are even in existence amongst one another and how we should care for one another. And since we haven't figured that out, Black love is toxic. That's my answer at the moment. And it's sad because we have, again, I'm going to go back to the children. That's what they have in my heart. The children are the ones who lose out the most from all of this dysfunction. They have no role models. They have no support. They have no guidance and shit. You might even want to say they barely have any love. I think some people do care about them, but that genuineness to show up for them every day and give them something better than what they see is what we should all desire. And that's intimacy. That's being able to show up from somebody in their deepest, darkest times and provide them with care, nurturance, and affection, whether you're talking sexual or not. But we've been so traumatized and so socialized to be so nasty, both physically and emotionally towards one another, that we can't have that genuineness just for the kids. At the end of the day, if I think honestly, if we just listen to what I was saying earlier about that meaning and purpose, if we just did something different for our children, we would have different outcomes overall. So I'll stop getting so philosophical this evening and leave it at that because I can go on. But honestly, man, I think about this stuff all the time and it's frustrating because I see these kids, I see these Black children struggle just to, I mean, look, just, I would say go to your local elementary school, but it's probably gonna be on lockdown. These damn shootings going on. But just go to a park where there's Black kids and just sit there and observe. And you just see the pain in these kids, but they're still attempting to be children. But you can just see they're not getting love done the way that they should. Then go to a suburb and go sit in a park in one of your local suburbs and look at those kids. And you're going to see a different demeanor. And it doesn't mean that they're being loved better because there's abuse all around everywhere. But you see a different dynamic. You see parents playing with the kids. You don't see kids pushing kids in strollers. You don't see that. Okay, you don't. You see different dynamic. And it's not the fact, and I'm not talking about just because they're white folks in suburbs. I'm talking about just because there's different people there, different cultures respond differently. We have to approach our kids a little different. Oh, our brother from another mother says, the very word love comes from the Greek mindset. The Afrocentric mind is loyal. Loyalty. I prefer loyalty more than love. I don't want love. I want loyalty. Most Black men do.
And look, real quick before we get off, but Elle is right. But that goes back to meaning and purpose. In order for you to be loyal to anything, you got to have some sort of meaning and purpose behind it. So he ain't lying. He's telling the truth. But what are we loyal to?
And on that note, folks, we are over time talking about Black love. I'm sure we will cover this topic in one way or another later on down the line. We appreciate the folks who came by. Continue to check us out. We'll be here pretty much every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. 5 p.m. Pacific. So definitely check us out. Hit the comment section. Naisha, we seen you. We seen your comment. Talk about we bashing Black women. We seen that. I seen it. We ain't bashing Black women, Naisha. We love you. Come back onto the show. At some point in time, we will probably have guests join us in these conversations as well. But we're going to keep this thing rolling and moving. We appreciate all of you joining us. This is the third podcast. We'll be back next Tuesday. Until then, take care of yourself. Be well, be safe, and be constructive. We are out.